Okay, so I'm here in the shop today and I'm going to do a cooling system drain and fill. And as you can see, I'm working on my John Deere tractor instead of one of my other vehicles, but this is exactly the same as I do it on a passenger car or a truck. So I have my radiator right here, and then I have my coolant overflow bottle. I already looked, this vehicle does not have a drain or a petcock in the lower radiator tank. So what I'm going to have to do, if I take my flashlight here, I can look down and I can see right here my lower radiator hose, and it's easy to get to. So I'm going to undo the lower radiator hose and let the coolant go into a drain pan. You can see this green coolant isn't as green as I like, and it's just time for service as regular maintenance. Tools I'm going to need today, aside from my flashlight, is something to undo a 10 millimeter hose clamp. I'm going to use a cordless ratchet. I'm also going to use this to take off the 2 bolts for my overflow tank so I can wash that out. I need a drain pan, and as you can see here, I have some extended long life antifreeze coolant green. It's a hybrid AOT formulation for Asian vehicles using green coolant. And this happens to be, although it says it's John Deere, it's actually a Yanmar tractor, which is made in Japan. So that's why I'm using this coolant. Remember, we always want to use the correct coolant for the vehicle that we're operating on. One coolant does not fit everything. So let's go ahead and get started, and let's get some coolant draining. Okay, so the first thing I always do is undo my radiator cap. That way, when I open up the bottom, all the coolant's going to come out safely. I also want to look at the radiator cap, see if the seal is cracked. This one looks a little slimy. I'll probably rinse it off so I can get a better look at it. But you can see inside here it's a little bit rusty. It's definitely time. That's why we change our coolant at a regular interval. Next, I'm going to need to grab my drain pan. I'm going to set my drain pan underneath the vehicle. And you can see I have it best I can underneath my lower radiator hose right here. Okay, so you can see my hose clamp right here. It's a 10 millimeter hex head right here to release the clamp. I don't need to untake the screw out. I just need to relieve tension. So the first thing I want to do is make sure I have my ratchet in the off position. So I always want to check that because I don't want to have it on and actually damage the radiator. So I'm going to put this on. And you can see I've relieved tension, you can tell, because now the locking washer is below this part of the clamp, and I can spin the clamp. So now that I can spin the clamp, I should go to twist the hose, and it looks like I need to move my drain pan back just a hair, and we're going to open this up. And what I want to do is I want to try to get this to drain out slowly, and I know it's kind of hard to see. Let me move the light here a little bit. And so what I'm trying to do is loosen this so that I have it drain out the bottom. And you can see it's not as bad as it looks, but yet it's definitely not what we want. So it's just time. Again, we shouldn't be waiting to change this till it's completely bad. We want to change it as preventive maintenance. So we do this by time and mileage based on manufacturer specifications. So I'm going to let this drain down, and you can see it where it comes out of the hose, out of the engine, it kind of glurped a little bit. So the hardest part about this is when I fill it up, making sure I get all the air out of it. Because what I don't want is I don't want an air pocket in here because it would cause the vehicle to overheat. So what I'm going to want to do is once I fill it up, I'm going to want to operate it until the thermostat opens, and I'll watch the temperature gauge to make sure I'm not overheating. So now I'm going to let this drip just a little bit, and there we go. And now I can put this back on. I can spin this back around because I want to keep this at the same rotation on the clamp. And then I can come in and again, making sure that I'm on the correct rotation. I'm now tightening. I'm going to come up and I'm going to take it down right to the shiny spot. There you go. I don't want to do any more than that with the air ratchet because I could easily over torque it. From here, I'll double check it by hand. Now again, I'm going to check, make sure I'm going to the on position, because sometimes when you're working upside down, get turned on, and I can tell that this is plenty tight. I don't need to go too tight. And now that that's tight, now I can go up top and I can clean out my overflow bottle. Okay, now that I have my overflow bottle, I just need to take the lid off. And you can see it has the little drain. It goes all the way into the bottom, so that way under suction it'll pull coolant back in. And then I just need to take off the 2 little 10 millimeter screws. And now that I've dumped it out, and I took it over to the sink and rinsed it out a little bit and washed the outside off with a little bit of soap. I'm ready to put it back on. Notice I'd start both bolts before I tighten either one. So that way I got them both started, a couple threads by hand, and then I can use my ratchet. And again, I don't want to go too hard with it because I can break the plastic. So I'm going to come in and double check by hand that it's snug. So now we're ready to put some coolant into the overflow bottle and put some coolant into the radiator. Okay, so now I'm going to take some really new coolant and put it in. If you notice, I didn't rinse this out. Anything that I wash through here becomes hazardous waste. And I'm going to use a little extra strong coolant. Normally we'd go 50-50. I'm going to go closer to 75-25, and I'll put straight coolant in the overflow bottle. So we're going to add some coolant here. And I also want to add some coolant into my overflow bottle. So I'm going to move this out of the way so I can get into the bottle. Now keep in mind, when we do the drain and fill, we do not get rid of all the coolant. So there is still some water and coolant mixture in the block, and the coolant's broken down. So I'm fine going there with it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the radiator cap back on so I don't make a big mess. I'm going to put my overflow bottle in, back attached, bring my air duct back around. And we're going to start this thing and we're going to watch our operating temperature. What I want to make sure is that both my upper hose gets hot and my lower hose gets hot. After that happens, we're going to let it cool down. I'm going to recheck the coolant level. One of the tools I have here is a thermal imager, and you can see on the right hand side of the scale, as I come up to where the exhaust is, that's where it's very hot. As I come over here and point, here's my upper radiator hose, and I can see the temperature on it, about 80 degrees. And if I look at the lower radiator hose, I can also see that it's only about that 80 degrees, 70 degrees. As I come up, and it's calibrating, I come over here, what? It's warmer, because I'm closer to that. I'm 90 degrees, and I come into the engine that was running, and we can see I've got a lot more heat, 126 degrees. So you can see here, my thermostat is not open because they're not both the same temperature. So what we want, and you can see here now that I've shut it off, I've got some heat come into that hose because the heat is moving. Sometimes when we have a vehicle that we're trying to get the thermostat to open, we actually have to shut it off so that we can see where the temperature's at, and then also give the coolant time to heat and let that thermostat open. So that's one of the ways we solve for a sticking thermostat if we have that problem. But here I wanted to show you the tool we're going to be using since this vehicle does not have a gauge. Here is my upper radiator hose. I come down here and here's my lower radiator hose, and we can see where we're definitely hot next to the block.